The Benedetto Affair, as it was called at the Palais, and by people in general, had produced a tremendous sensation. Frequenting the Café de Paris, the Boulevard de Gand, and the Bois de Boulogne, during his brief career of splendor, the false Cavalcanti had formed a host of acquaintances. The papers had related his various adventures, both as the man of fashion and the galley slave, and as everyone who had been personally acquainted with Prince Andrea Cavalcanti experienced a lively curiosity in his fate. They all determined to spare no trouble in endeavoring to witness the trial of M. Benedetto for the murder of his comrade in chains. In the eyes of many, Benedetto appeared, if not a victim to, at least an instance of, the fallibility of the law. M. Cavalcanti, his father, had been seen in Paris, and it was expected that he would reappear to claim the illustrious outcast. Many, also, who were not aware of the circumstances attending his withdrawal from Paris, were struck with the worthy appearance, the gentlemanly bearing, and the knowledge of the world displayed by the old patrician, who certainly played the nobleman very well, so long as he said nothing, and made no arithmetical calculations. As for the accused himself, many remembered him as being so amiable, so handsome, and so liberal, that they chose to think him the victim of some conspiracy, since in this world large fortunes frequently excite the malevolence and jealousy of some unknown enemy. Every one, therefore, ran to the court, some to witness the sight, others to comment upon it. From 7 o'clock in the morning a crowd was stationed at the iron gates, and an hour before the trial commenced the hall was full of the privileged. Before the entrance of the magistrates, and indeed frequently afterwards, a court of justice, on days when some especial trial is to take place, resembles a drawing room where many persons recognize each other and converse if they can do so without losing their seats, or, if they are separated by too great a number of lawyers, communicate by signs. It was one of the magnificent autumn days which make amends for a short summer. The clouds which M. de Villefort had perceived at sunrise had all disappeared as if by magic, and one of the softest and most brilliant days of September shone forth in all its splendor. Beecham, one of the kings of the press, and therefore claiming the right of a throne everywhere, was eyeing everybody through his monocle. He perceived Chateau Renaud and Debray, who had just gained the good graces of a sergeant-at-arms, and who had persuaded the latter to let them stand before, instead of behind him, as they ought to have done. The worthy sergeant had recognized the minister's secretary and the millionaire, and, by way of paying extra attention to his noble neighbors, promised to keep their places while they paid a visit to Beecham. "Well," said Beecham, "we shall see our friend." "Yes, indeed," replied Debray. "That worthy prince." "Deuce take those Italian princes." A man, too, who could boast of Dante for a genealogist, and could reckon back to the Divine Comedy. "A nobility of the rope," said Chateau Renaud phlegmatically. "He will be condemned, will he not?" asked Debray of Beecham. "My dear fellow, I think we should ask you that question. You know such news much better than we do. Did you see the president at the minister's last night?" "Yes." "What did he say?" "Something which will surprise you." "Oh, make haste and tell me, then, it is a long time since that has happened." "Well, he told me that Benedetto, who is considered a serpent of subtlety and a giant of cunning, is really but a very commonplace, silly rascal, and altogether unworthy of the experiments that will be made on his phrenological organs after his death." "Bah," said Beecham, "he played the prince very well." "Yes, for you who detest those unhappy princes, Beecham, and are always delighted to find fault with them, but not for me, who discover a gentleman by instinct, and who sent out an aristocratic family like a very bloodhound of heraldry." "Then you never believed in the principality?" "Yes. In the principality, but not in the prince." "Not so bad," said Beecham, "still, I assure you, he passed very well with many people. I saw him at the ministers' houses." "Ah, yes," said Chateau Renaud. "The idea of thinking ministers understand anything about princes." "There is something in what you have just said Beecham, laughing. "But," said Debray to Beecham, "if I spoke to the president, you must have been with the procureur." It was an impossibility. For the last week de Villefort has secluded himself. It is natural enough, this strange chain of domestic afflictions, followed by the no less strange death of his daughter. Strange? What do you mean, Beauchamp? Oh, yes, do you pretend that all this has been unobserved at the minister's? Said Beauchamp, placing his eyeglass in his eye, where he tried to make it remain. My dear sir, said Chateau Renaud, allow me to tell you that you do not understand that maneuver with the eyeglass half so well as Debray. Give him a lesson, Debray. Stay, said Beauchamp, surely I am not deceived. What is it? It is she? Whom do you mean? They said she had left. Mademoiselle Eugénie? Said Chateau Renaud, has she returned? No, but her mother. Madame Danglars? Nonsense. Impossible. Said Chateau Renaud, only 10 days after the flight of her daughter, and 3 days from the bankruptcy of her husband? Debray colored slightly, and followed with his eyes the direction of Beauchamp's glance. Come, he said, it is only a veiled lady, some foreign princess, perhaps the mother of Cavalcanti. But you were just speaking on a very interesting topic, Beauchamp. Yes, you were telling us about the extraordinary death of Valentine. Ah, yes, so I was. But how is it that Madame de Villefort is not here? Poor, dear woman, said Debray, she is no doubt occupied in distilling balm for the hospitals, or in making cosmetics for herself or friends. Do you know she spends 2,000 or 3,000 crowns a year in this amusement? But I wonder she is not here. I should have been pleased to see her, for I like her very much. And I hate her, said Chateau Renaud. Why? I do not know,